the tool is never the problem. It's how you use the tools.
Yeah.
If you want to make a record without editing, you can still do that on a computer. Just make the decision not to edit. That's your call. I don't understand it, but it's your call, right? So it's not that the computer is making your music over edited. It's that you're over editing your music. So
100%.
like you can, whatever reason you want to use that or not use a computer, you can still use a computer and achieve that exact same result.
This is the Self-Recording Band Podcast, the show where we help you make exciting records on your own, wherever you are, DIY style. Let's go.
Hello and welcome to the Self-Recording Band Podcast. I'm your host, Benedict Hein. If you are new to the show, welcome. If you are already a listener, welcome back. We appreciate you all. This show is available on all kinds of podcast apps, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you enjoy podcasts. And it's also available on YouTube if you want to watch the video. By the way, if you are a listener of ours and you watch it on YouTube, you might be wondering what's going on. I'm not at my studio. I'm also not traveling anymore. I'm home, but I'm really home now in my actual home in my office here, recording this, talking into my laptop mic and using my phone as a camera. So that's why this is all a little different, but we got to do it that way today. Hope that works and hope you can hear us well and it sounds kind of okay. We'll be back to a normal thing, hopefully very soon. That being said, one more thing before we dive into the episode. I want to apologize because I know I've been dropping the ball when it comes to releasing the episodes, and people have told me that, so I just want to say that we still managed to do weekly episodes, but we kind of didn't do it every Wednesday. We'll be back to the normal routine very soon, I promise you. So we're not going to stop the podcast or anything like that. We still do weekly episodes, and very soon it's going to be a routine again. Very sorry for that. Just very busy times. If you listen to the last couple of episodes, you know why. So we'll be back very, very soon. Now today, we talk about something that I think we've never talked before on the show. And this is recording music without a computer. And the reason for why we want to talk about this is that I get emails pretty frequently from our listeners and subscribers who tell me that they don't use computers to record. They record on a Multitrack. There's the first one that comes to mind is a Tascam sort of Multitrack hardware recorder. There's different models out there, but there's people who use those instead of computers. And some tell me the reason for it, and it's mostly about being afraid of using computers or computers failing or whatever, or the learning curve or whatever. And sometimes I don't know what the exact reason is, but I find it interesting enough, and it happens often enough, that I felt like we should talk about that on the podcast, and whether or not it's a good idea. There's pros and cons, and maybe convince you, if you're doing that, to try a computer. But we'll see. So, as always, I'm doing this with my friend and co-host, Malcolm Owen Flood. Hello, Malcolm. How are you? It's been a while.
Hey, Benny. I'm great, man. It's good to be chatting with you again, for sure. Yeah. On the podcast not coming out on Wednesday things, it's all good problems we're having.
Yeah.
So
totally.
Don't worry, folks. Things are very good. We're just, it's growing pains.
It's growing pains, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But how have you been? The last couple of weeks, actually. It's been more than 2 weeks since we did the last episode, and crazy busy time.
Man,
so.
I've been really good. I got COVID, but I've been really good. It's been a lot. It's been a lot for you. It's been a lot for me. But it's all exciting. This year's going to be so much fun. There's so much cool stuff coming up. But yeah, just got to keep trucking away. I'm finally feeling healthy again right now, and going to go for a run after this episode. I'm super excited to be able to move again.
Dude, I'm happy for you. Yeah, I just came in from a run earlier today, and it's been a while for me too because I actually got sick as well in the US. So happy for you to feel that you feel better again. And I'm excited for our normal routine also, because those 3 weeks, as exciting as they were, I'm really happy that I'm now back getting back into my normal routine and moving things forward and taking action on all those opportunities that happen.
Getting back into the flow, kind of exactly. Yeah. It's gonna be fun. But totally. Recording without computers. This is I'm sure there's as you told me, Benny, you mentioned that this question comes up, or topic comes up a lot from students and people emailing the podcast and the community. So there are definitely people out there that are commonly trying to record their music without a computer, which totally fascinates me, because I'm sure that all of the other people listening to this that haven't been considering that option are like, wait, people do that? They tried to record without a computer in 2024. So it's really fascinating, right? That's so foreign sounding nowadays. But it is funny because when I think back to initially trying to record music, that was a thing. I didn't have, but the singer in my band, Rob Wilkinson, who you know, Benny, he had this, I think it was Boss made it, this big brick of a recording, multi-track recorder with different faders. It was like a full studio in a box, really.
Yeah. And I had that one too.
Yeah. We released music off that thing, I'm pretty sure, as a band, which is crazy.
Totally. Man, that reminds me, I had that one too. Like mine was a 8 channel. At least it had 8 faders, I think. There was a CD burner built into it where you could burn like CDs from whatever you did, and also a slot for car. It wasn't even SD cards. It were these giant square kind of whatever they are called cards.
Yeah, some old school media.
Yeah, but I remember like the first demos that I've done for other bands, like when I've started recording Friends and getting into this whole thing, was they were done on this thing. But even then, I remember I transferred the recordings, like I took that thing to the jam spaces, recorded on it, and then I transferred the files to a computer and then used, I think it was Mixcraft or something like that back in the day, to quote unquote mix it. So I didn't even do the full thing there other than a few demo recordings. So very early on, I realized that it's kind of limited compared to what a computer can do. But yeah, I think many of us have used those in the past.
Yes. Yeah.
So can you think of a good reason to opt for something like that and not use, it's like instead of using a computer?
No. I think we're really biased, like Benny and I, like we're savvy with our computers. So it's like computers aren't intimidating to us at this point. So it's hard for us to put ourselves in that shoe. I will say that maybe the hurdle that I could see an argument being made for that I couldn't argue back is that computers are really expensive. It's amazing how much computer you can get for such little money nowadays, but it doesn't change the fact that they are devices that cost like thousands of dollars. Like they're expensive machines. So I totally understand that there's somebody listening to this podcast that just can't even imagine. So that argument makes a lot of sense to me, that use the tools you have, of course. Use an iPhone to make your record if you have to,
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to say. So when I say use a computer, I'm assuming you have a computer or the means to buy one, and even if it's just a cheap one.
Yeah.
If you don't have one,
access to one.
Access to one, yeah. If you don't have one, that's actually a good point. That's what I wanted to say too, is like, you don't just need the computer, you also need the interface, right? And the software or whatever. I mean, there's free stuff out there, but you need the interface at least. So I could see that if someone if they don't need a computer in their life, they're fine without one. All they would use it for is like music, and they don't want to spend money on that, or they don't have the money, but they could get one of these recorders for, I don't even know what they cost these days, but like a few $100 maybe. And then you'd have basically your recording device and your interface and all of that in one thing. I could see that makes sense. That seems to make sense for someone. So totally. And I think if you are really, learning the thing well and you putting in the effort and the practice and whatnot, you could make good sounding stuff on those things probably, right? It's like definitely there's someone's out there who made a killer record on one of those things for sure. I just still think it's going to be way harder than doing it on a computer. And I honestly also think that I would probably rather save up for a little longer and then get a used whatever computer as a starting point and limit myself in terms of plugins and get a free DAW and get a cheap interface. I would still rather do that than spend $300, $400, $500 on a recorder like that, because it won't be that much more expensive to get started with a computer, right? It doesn't have to be something fancy, but I would rather have like a 10-year-old computer and a cheap interface and a free DAW than one of these recorders probably still. So,
100%. Yeah. I think that the people that are wanting to use an external standalone recorder like this, that aren't just opposed to spending money on a computer, that are doing it because they're scared of computers, is probably the biggest reason, need to understand that this device they're using, the standalone recorder, is a computer. It is that it's just a computer that can only do one thing, really.
Yeah.
And they're actually really confusingly laid out in my experience. They're not easy to use. You're learning how to use it, and then it becomes easy, right? And it is the exact same thing with the DAW. So I really encourage you to kind of get over the hurdle and just get used to a DAW. And like Benny said, there's Reaper, totally free, and it's amazing what it can do. You can do there's professionals that use Reaper. So it's totally something you can figure out, but it's just a learning curve like anything. You just got to rip that Band-Aid off.
Yeah, totally. Agree with all you said there. And I think it's partly being afraid of computers. And then I think that's just what you just said there is the solution for that. You just have to try it and then see that it's actually not that terrible and realize that this other device can also crash and give you headaches and problems because it is a computer. Mm-hmm. But then there's this other side of it where I think some people actually think it's better because, I know for sure that there's a group of people who think, computers ruin music because you start editing things too much and it's unnatural, and I would rather not have a screen and it's like more organic that way and all those things. The same arguments that people have for using tape machines, basically.
Right.
So to that, I want to say that using a computer means you have all the options in the world, but it doesn't mean you have to use them all. But it's great to have access to some of those things in case you need them. And I don't think that there's any advantage to, these digital recorders. There's not even the argument that some people have with tape where they say, well, it has a sound. I don't even believe in that when it comes to tape necessarily because I don't want to get into that. But for those digital recorders, they are computers. So there is a conversion that's probably not as good as your interface. There is, there's digital software doing the processing, which is probably not as good as the plugins we would have on your computer. There's very limited editing options there. So if you have to fix the occasional mistake or any of that, it's very hard to do, which is probably what people want when they don't want the computer because they're afraid they're going to edit it too much and stuff. But I'd say even the most organic record would benefit from a little fix here and there, or maybe it's not about fixing things or making them fake. Maybe you can make it feel even better by intentionally moving things where they're supposed to be. And I don't see a computer as like something that takes away from whatever the art was that happened in front of the mic. I see it as something that can give me an even better version of what I have in my mind, or what I captured in front, like what I did in front of the mic. I don't see it as a thing that ruins that. I see it as a tool that can bring out the best in it, like and
100%.
So I don't think there's any reason to be afraid for one or the other reason. Like I don't think so. I don't think there is an advantage. And if your problem is that you're going to be distracted by the computer or whatever, maybe just turn off the screen while you're listening for a few minutes, or when you're tracking, create a loop or something. Don't look at the screen, turn it off and just play if that is distracting you. But if you need it, it's great to have it, and you're gonna need it at some point. So,
yeah.
And there's nothing magical about these recorders because they're cheap digital devices. They are just as digital as the computer setup, just limited in functionality, and they sound worse. So
they sound terrible. The preamp and digital conversion quality has come a long ways in the last while, and I wouldn't. I mean, I don't know this because it's been so long since I used one, but I would imagine that their latency is probably a little suspect even. They're probably slow. So recording drums, one's probably kind of a nightmare. Yeah, but like what you said, I think really sums up to the tool is never the problem. It's how you use the tools.
Yeah.
If you want to make a record without editing, you can still do that on a computer. Just make the decision not to edit. That's your call. I don't understand it, but it's your call, right? So it's not that the computer is making your music over edited. It's that you're over editing your music. So
100%.
Like you can, whatever reason you want to use that or not use a computer, you can still use a computer and achieve that exact same result.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, exactly. Also, I think it's worth, and that might be also part of it, you don't know what you don't know. So you got to realize, and it's worth talking about this real quick, you got to realize the components that are like, what this thing is actually made of, like the components that are in this box, like what is in such a recorder and why is it worse than using a computer. So if you use a computer system, even if you use free stuff, you have someone who put time, resources, energy, money into creating the software you're going to use. They are specialists. They only do the software part, and they're great at it, and it's awesome, even the free stuff. Then there's someone who built the actual machine that runs all of that. They built the parts of the computer, and it's the system everything runs on. They do that. Then there is an interface, which is the connection between the digital world and like the outside. So you have the actual interface, then you have conversion, meaning your analog signals need to be converted to digital and back so you can hear it. So that's a component. Someone built that in an interface and focused on that. Then there's the preamps. So you plug your mic into something that amplifies your microphone signal, and that's called a mic preamp that's built into your interface or is external or whatever, but that's another part. And like all these things. And the recorder that is very cheap has all of those things in one box. There's no way that any of these companies can do all of these things very well. No way. Mm-hmm. Like there's the bare minimum in terms of software, the bare minimum in terms of processing power. There's some very cheap converter chip that's probably, the same you would find on any like consumer electronic thing, like it's just a standard, whatever cheap chip that converts from analog to digital and back. Then you have probably less than ideal latency, like you said. Then you have definitely noisy mic pre's. Then you probably don't have a good power supply and all these things. That's the price you pay for that all-in-one solution. And so that's why I just think it makes so much sense to even get a cheap computer, a free software, $100 interface, and you'll be better off and probably don't even spend that much more. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's so hard. We're so biased.
Yeah,
but I really think we're right here.
But I still want to say though, I'm genuinely interested. I made this episode not to tell people that you can't use a recorder. I'm telling you, of course, I have an opinion, like you obviously, but I wanted to make this because I'm genuinely interested. I really want to understand what's behind this because it happens really often that people tell me that. And if there's any good reason for it, or if you tried both and got better results with that one, like let me know. I really want to know. I want to know why people keep telling me this and asking for this. And if it's purely because of the reasons we just mentioned, like price or being afraid of computers or computers making music terrible or whatever, then I think you should give it a try. But if there's any other reasons, let us know because I'm really interested. And I'm not saying it can't be done. I just said that I've tried both and I definitely know what I want to use. There's no logical sort of thing that I can right now think of that would make sense. But that doesn't mean it can't be done, and it doesn't mean there isn't any advantage. So let us know. And ideally, share a recording, right, that you made with that thing. So.
Yeah. That's the perfect summary. A lot of this episode was Danny and I trying to like devil's advocate it and just try and like put ourselves into those shoes to try and figure out why. And we can't do it. Other than maybe maybe the biggest argument is to just use the tools you have, and I totally get that. And then the other argument I could see is like, hey, this is fun. We're doing something intentionally as an experiment for fun, and that's super badass. Yeah, do it.
Absolutely.
Love it. If there's a story there, I think that's really cool. Cut a single with one and be like, and you can. That's something you can communicate with your audience. I think that is rad.
Totally. Like also people still using these 4-track tape recorders or something, right? Like the cassette tape recorders. Like I totally get why they're using that. They know that it's not better than a computer, but it's an intentional, fun way of making a record or demo or whatever. So I totally get that. It's a different story though. So, and also now that we have this episode, I have something that I can send those people when I get these questions. This is also it's also great. And one I completely forgot another good point here, I think at least. So if you are on my email list and email me that you don't use a recorder and all, you don't use a computer and all of that, that means you're still interested in learning how to produce and record yourself. That's why you're on that email list. You probably downloaded some of our free guides, you listen to the podcast, whatever. So you are in our little bubble here and are interested in improving your craft and improving your skills as an engineer, self-recording, band, whatever. So, and that means you're looking for resources and education. You may be looking at things like this podcast. You're looking at, YouTube videos, downloads, coaching, courses, whatever. It's very hard to help you and to get better if you say, I only use these recorders, because literally all the education out there, like almost all the education out there, every single video, every single podcast, every course, our coaching program, all of those things are computer-based. Like everything we teach is like, this is how you do it in a DAW. Like I've never seen, maybe there is one, but I've never seen a program or a course or a tutorial unless it's specifically about that piece of gear. But I've never seen anything where someone is showing you how to make a record on a piece of gear like that. So this means if you want to get really good results, which is the case because that's why you emailed me in the first place and you took the time to download the stuff and go through our content. So if you want to really get better, it's going to be super hard because I wouldn't even be able to offer you my coaching or our courses. It wouldn't make sense because nothing in there is about using those things. It's all in a DAW, and you couldn't do what I show you on a recorder like that. So that's another angle here that I wanted to address and talk about because, yeah, I wouldn't even be able to help you.
It's a really good point. Honestly, you need to communicate in a way that people can help you with, and this makes it pretty tricky using some niche recorder that like nobody else has. Yeah, makes it really tricky.
Yeah. Some of the principles still apply. I mean, I could teach you, where to place the mics and like the basic recording things, which are very important. So I definitely could teach you that. But all the content, all the great resources that we've built that we use to educate our students, they would not be of much value to you, and you're missing out on so much. That's what I'm trying to say. Also, everybody has their favorite YouTube educator or whatever, and like it's going to be very hard to find a lot of good resources if you don't want to use a computer. So you might be unnecessarily limiting yourself, and that's what I want to avoid because I know you're interested. I know you want to get better. That's why you take the time to consume our stuff and email me, and so maybe you should give it a shot. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I think so. I think you gotta embrace the computer. You'll learn to love it. It'll make you more powerful than ever. You'll become a wizard of audio.
Totally. Or if you really that's one thing you briefly touched on. If you have an iPad or a phone instead of a computer, maybe use that. There's almost of all of the DAWs have like a mobile version now, or there is specific mobile DAWs. Maybe use that. That will still be better than one of those recorders. So there's that. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So short episode, but I think that covers pretty much everything there is to cover on this, honestly.
Yeah, I think so too. So thank you for listening. If you want to know what the whole email thing is that I talked about or whatever, if you just happen to find this podcast, we got plenty of free downloads. So in the description of this episode, you'll find ways to join our community. You can get on our email list, download our free guides. We deliver a ton of value through these emails. We don't spam you. You can apply for our coaching program. You can join our Facebook community. So if you're new to this and wonder what kind of communication I'm talking about, once you're in our sort of ecosystem here, you'll see what I'm talking about. So just sign up for one of those things. There's no pressure. It's all free. And I'd love to welcome you in our community. And then hopefully get to talk to you personally as well and answer your questions. So yeah, do that.
Do it. All right.
Thank you for listening and watching as always, and see you next week. Bye-bye.
See you next time. Bye.